Well, hi-de-ho, Internet. This is Chris McKee with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. Guess what? Taylor released a bunch of V-Class guitars. I know, they did that last year, but they did that this year too, and they released even more. What they've done is they have introduced V-Class bracing to their line of grand concert guitars. Everything from the 300 series up is getting V-Class bracing. Now they are starting with guitars in the 300, 500, 800 series, and 800 Deluxe series guitars. And we happen to have all of them, pretty much all of them for you today. And we've already done a review of the 812 CE Deluxe 12 fret. We are now basically going to go through all of these for you so that you can hear in one video how each one compares to the next. There's 312 CE, a 12 fret version of that, 322 CEs, 12 fret version of that, 512s like I'm holding here, 12 fret version, 522 12 frets, 812, 14 fret, 12 fret, and the deluxe models. All of them share one thing in common. They're grand concert, well, I guess a few things in common. They're grand concert guitars with V-Class bracing. Now, if you've been hiding under a rock or you haven't heard about this, quick refresher. Andy Powers from Taylor Guitars has developed a new bracing pattern, okay? Instead of an X brace that crosses under the sound hole like this and has some additional bracing, which has been traditional on most flat top acoustic guitars for about a century, it's V bracing, okay? It runs two V braces from the tail block parallel on to a fan style on either side of the sound hole. There's little fan braces on either side. It's a symmetrical bracing pattern. And here's what it does. By running parallel with the strings, it's incredibly rigid right here. The top of the guitar is really strong where it needs to be. But the sides are now looser, able to flex more. By combining these two things, you get more volume, more sustain, okay? More volume from the sides being able to flex, more sustained from the middle being rigid and allowing the strings to kind of do what they need to do without flopping all over the place. And as a bonus, and I think probably the most significant headline in this, improved intonation. Now the way this works, and I've been asked repeatedly on social media and emails, let me try to make it succinct for you. The reason there's improved intonation is because the top moves in a more orderly fashion. If you think about what an X brace guitar looks like, where there's not braces, there's pockets, okay? And the guitar top is kind of undulating all over the place based upon how it's braced. Whether it's straight bracing, scallop bracing, what have you. Forward shifted, rear shifted, splayed out, whatever, okay? There's all sorts of different X braces. But the top's going to move in different places based upon how that works. With the V-style, it seesaws is basically what it's doing. It's a more orderly fashion, and as a result, the overtones that it creates are in tune with the initial note that you played. Also, because the strings are kind of anchored in this rigid area in the middle of the top, the strings themselves are not kind of moving all over the place. The bridge plate's not moving all over the place. It's really anchored down, and so that means that your note, after you play it, isn't going to go flat or sharp by this kind of rocking all over the place. And so you have improved intonation. You have great sounding notes all the way up the fretboard. You can play an E and it's in tune. You can play a D and it's in tune. And that really hasn't always been the case with acoustic guitars. So, there's been a lot of different bracing patterns that have been experimented by with a lot of different builders, ladder bracing and fan bracing and X bracing and hybrids and Kasha bracing systems and all that stuff. I happen to think this, at this point, is probably one of the best alternatives to X bracing I've ever played. And the other thing that's really not talked about a lot with the new V bracing is that Andy Powers and the guys at Taylor no longer have to decide between volume and sustain. It's not if you increase this, you lose this. If you increase this, you lose this. They can now adapt this bracing without sacrificing one or the other. And that's a really big thing. So that's the story with the bracing that's come across the line. Outside of that, these are very similar to the guitars that came out before with X bracing. So you're going to have a grand concert size, which is the smallest full-size body that Taylor makes. It's kind of like around a 000 size, very comfortable. It's a shorter scale neck, so it's about 24 7/8, I believe. It's under 25 inches. So that shorter scale means that it's a little bit warmer. The frets are a little bit closer together. The strings have a little bit more give to them, a little slinkier feel. So it's really nice. And you can space across there. If you've struggled maybe with a 4 or 5 fret gap, the frets are a little closer together, and you'll notice that here. All of the guitars feature the ES2 pickup system if you opt to get one with an electronic system. These are all cutaways as well. The way you can denote that they're V-class guitars, and this is for the Grand Concerts as well as the Grand Pacifics and the Grand Auditorium guitars, is that they're going to feature this black graphite nut. It's basically just denotes it pretty quickly that it's a V-class guitar. It also helps to lubricate the strings going through the slots. And it blends really nicely with most of the binding on a lot of these guitars. So if it's dark binding like this one, and like many of the others have, it blends in there pretty nice, so just as a bonus. You can also denote it by looking at the label inside. Okay, all of the V-class guitars got a new label. And if it's a solid headstock like this one, you have an inlay up on the headstock, whereas the previous models did not get one. So that in a nutshell is what's going on. As I mentioned, we're looking at 300, 500, 800, 800 deluxe guitars at this point. As the year goes on, Taylor will introduce additional models of Grand Concert guitars with the V-bracing, and we'll bring you those reviews as they come out. For now, take a look. We're going to go through each and every one of these guitars, tell you the specs real quick, and give you a playing demonstration. So the new line of Taylor's Grand Concert V-Class guitar starts here with the 312 CE. Now the 312 is actually available in the CE 14 fret version, which is what I'm holding, or a 12 fret version. The 12 fret version costs just a little bit more, comes with a slotted headstock, you'll see that one in a little bit. Like other 300 or 300 series guitars like a 314, it is a combination of a Sitka spruce top with sapele back and sides. The top is glossed, back and sides are satin finish. It's got the ES2 pickup system. Gemstone inlay up the fretboard, ebony fretboard, and on the headstock up at the top. Ebony bridge, of course, and the new V-Class bracing. And that's really the thing here, right? All of these guitars now feature V-bracing. So what you're going to get is a great playing small body guitar. And like I said, all of these guitars really are now louder than they previously were. So if you, say, liked a small body guitar, but you went with maybe a Grand Auditorium or slightly bigger guitar because you wanted that volume, these now have the volume that maybe the old Grand Auditoriums had. They take strumming and flat picking pretty well, but just as we said before, in a lot of these comparisons, it's a small body guitar. It's very well suited for a particular playing style. You can strum it more so than you probably previously could with last year's model. You can flat pick a little bit more, but if you really want a lot of volume with a heavy pick, with a heavy hand, you're probably better suited with a bigger guitar. However, if you really like a small body guitar, if you need something for your size or stature, or you play with a lighter touch, this is going to be a louder guitar in that manner as well. So the 314 CE, really great model, improved with the V-bracing. Let's let you hear it. Okay, so you looked at the 312 CE. This is basically the same guitar in a 12 fret version, okay? So same tone woods, same bracing pattern, modified for 12 fret. We'll talk about that in a second. Same back and sides wood, same inlay, although there's not one on the headstock because this has a slotted headstock. So from across the room, quick way of determining whether or not it's a 14 fret or 12 fret is typically a 12 fret from Taylor is going to have this slotted headstock with the tuners on the side instead. And there's a reason for that. From an aesthetic standpoint, it does a few other things. It's a 12 fret neck. Now what that means is that the neck joins the body at the 12th fret instead of the 14th fret, which is what's typical on most steel string guitars today. What that means is the scale hasn't changed. It's the same scale length as the 14 fret guitar, but since the neck is shorter this way, the bridge moves down in equal measure, okay? So it's now more in the middle rather than up here, kind of in the top middle, whatever, kind of in the middle third of the guitar. And what that does is that means that this vibrating portion, okay, this is where the strings are exerting energy into the top, is now really kind of in the middle of this big portion across the bout here, okay? And what that does is it gives it a more open, kind of played in sound. Now that's something you might read in a guitar magazine or in specs. Here's what that means. If you play a guitar for 30, 40, 50 years, it opens up, okay? The idea that people are trying to convey is that a 12 fret guitar kind of sounds like the 14 fret guitar 50 years from now, in the fact that it's moving the top more from this area. Now that also means that 50 years from now, this is still going to sound kind of more open, so to speak. That's just the terminology we're using than the 14 fret version of the same guitar. So it's driving the top more here, okay? Same scale length. It is shorter neck, so your 12 frets here. The cutaway it makes it very nice on a 12 fret guitar. So if you need the upper register, if you're going to the 14th fret, you're going to want a cutaway typically on a 12 fret guitar. Also, incidentally, this is what most classical guitars are, is 12 fret. So you've probably played one before. Now, let's get back to the headstock. The reason the headstock is slotted is for three reasons, really. One, aesthetics. It's very pleasing. It looks nice. Two, weight. You're actually lightening the headstock here, and that helps to kind of balance the guitar better since the neck is shorter. And three, the breakover angle, okay? So because this is a short scale and the placement of the neck and everything, the strings have a particular feel to them on a 12 fret guitar. And by doing this, you are helping to kind of enhance that slinky feeling by locking these strings down into the nut and then increasing this breakover angle, which really helps with the vibrating resonance of the string. If you don't believe me, that's why there's string trees on Stratocaster guitars or back tilted headstocks on Gibsons, etc. So that's the reason for that. So in a nutshell, those are the differences between this and the 14 fret version. Let's hear it. So also in the 300 series are the 322s. Now, if you're not familiar with Taylor's numbering system, basically the first number is the series, 3. The second number determines both the number of strings and the top. So if it is a 1, that's a spruce top 6 string. If it's a 2, it's a hardwood top 6 string. If it's a 5, which doesn't apply here, it's a spruce top 12 string, and a 6 is a hardwood top 12 string. And then the last number is the body shape. Okay, so 322 would be a 300 series with a 6 string hardwood top in the grand concert body. CE is cutaway electronics. And this is a 12 fret. So there is a 322 CE 12 fret and 14 fret models. Just like we talked about with the 312, kind of same things apply. The specs are going to be the same other than the changes that a 12 fret brings. So you're getting a top of mahogany, back and sides of Tasmanian blackwood, which is a really nice tone wood. It's an acacia similar to koa. Has a wonderful tone to it. And combined with mahogany, it's real nice. You get this all satin finish with this edge burst on the top, gemstone inlay again, and the V-class bracing. So the other cool thing about these is sometimes the hardware will sometimes change color. I think it's on the 14 fret version to mirror the darker tones of the wood and of the finish that they're doing. So very cool. It's going to sound darker, more mid-range focused and compressed compared to the spruce top version of the 300 series. Check it out, you'll see what I mean. So the 322, like the 12th fret, here's the 14th fret version, okay? Gives you that mahogany top with Tasmanian blackwood back and sides. This one has some figuring on the sides, which is rather nice. That nice edge burst finish. And on these 14th fret versions, you get that darker hardware, which really goes nicely with the guitar. It's kind of this nice understated, dark sounding, just cool guitar. So I really like it. I also really like the back of the tuners here with the embossed Taylor logo in this black, satin black finishes. Just cool. So great guitar, wonderful look. Take a listen. You'll see what I mean with the extremely different tone from the 312 CE to the 322 CE. Check it out. Now, the next series that has released the grand concerts with Taylor is the 500 series, which is what I started this video holding. And spoiler, I'll just tell you, this is my favorite of the bunch so far because I love cedar and mahogany. It's a wonderful combination. So There's a 14 fret version and 12 fret version again. The 500 series aesthetic design choices still apply here. So we've got the Century inlay and Ivoroid. We've got faux tortoiseshell binding. It's mahogany and cedar for the top with the V-bracing changes. So tone-wise, here's what I'll tell you. I really like cedar. I really like cedar on a small body guitar. And V-bracing on cedar has done something interesting. So the reason I like cedar is it's like really well played in spruce. It's extremely responsive to a light touch, and it has a roundness to the attack of the notes. That's just beautiful. It responds so well to a light touch. Now, that means it will also overdrive if you dig into it really hard. It's not made for that, but this handles light strumming. And with V-bracing, this handles strumming and kind of flat picking better than any cedar-topped guitar I've previously played. Now, the combination of cedar and mahogany gives you this wonderful, rich mid-range airiness that I really like. The 514, that cedar and mahogany, is also one of my favorites. So, fantastic guitar made better with the V-bracing. And here we go. It's basically the same guitar again, but with 12th fret. So everything I said about cedar, it's going to be modified a little bit by the 12th fret bracing, position of the bridge, and the way that the force is exerted on the top. So take a listen, see if you can hear the differences now. Now, if cedar's not your thing, or you want just a really punchy mid-range rich guitar, Taylor offers a 522, kind of like the 312 and 322 we saw before. The 522 is a 500 series guitar with a hardwood top on it. In this case, it's all mahogany, or as some people like to say, an all-hog guitar. Now, all mahogany guitars are rather nice. They have a particularly punchy, mid-range, focused tone. What happens when you use hardwood for the top of a guitar is that instead of having a broad dynamic range, it actually compresses it. So if you're a player that maybe is kind of all over the place with your attack, it's really going to even it out. It does what a compressor pedal on an electric guitar does. It kind of increases the sustain and evens out those peaks and valleys of your playing or of the basic dynamics of the note. So you're gonna have more sustain and you're gonna have a punchy sound that really cuts through. When you lay into it even more, that kind of compression makes the sound rounder. You get a really, really round note that's particularly nice if you're doing some kind of Delta bluesy, kind of laying it in, pull off, hammer-on type stuff, and I'll show you what I mean. This is available in a 14 and a 12 fret. We only have the 12 fret to show you at this time, but if you prefer the longer neck or just the look or sound of the 12 fret, that's certainly an option as well. I happen to, with this particular style of guitar, with a mahogany top, I tend to prefer the 12 fret neck. Take a listen. The 800 series has long been a flagship in Taylor's lineup, and the 812 basically continues that tradition. Now, the 800 series is just a beautiful guitar. There's been wonderful changes. We'll talk about what the tone woods offer. So spruce and rosewood is often a well-desired acoustic guitar tone wood combination for good reason. Spruce, Sitka spruce, is used on most acoustic guitars, and it gives you a lot of dynamic range. It'll respond to a light touch, it'll respond to a heavy touch, it doesn't really break up easily. You can vary your attack and it's going to respond well to you. It's going to give you that brightness and it's going to give you that articulation that you want. And when you pair it with rosewood, it's particularly great, even mostly if you're like singing or even if you're just playing guitar, and I'll tell you why. Rosewood as a tone wood gives you the most treble and the most bass of any of the tone woods. It has this wonderful bell-like chime and this rich, overtone heavy bass structure to it, but it's got a scooped out mid-range. Now, if you sing, the human voice occupies that mid-range. But even if you're just playing fingerstyle guitar, flat picking, or what have you, you're going to get that bell-like chime that's going to cut through, and you're going to get these wonderful, rich overtones, and then you're going to get this nice present bass. So rosewood's a fantastic tone wood. And the way Taylor executes it in the 800 series is really a sharp-looking guitar. So we've got the element inlay, we've got pale maple binding, and I really like wood bindings on acoustic guitars, I'll just simply tell you. Beautiful rosewood pickguard, rosewood and abalone rosette, maple framed fingerboard and headstock with the inlay up there. New for this year are these really cool smoked nickel tuners that complement the coloring and the aesthetics of the wood very, very well. And then of course, as we've been talking, the real kicker here is the fact that it's V-brace, so you get all of those benefits. Here's the 14 fret version. So here is the 12 fret version. We just shrunk it down a little bit and shaved some off the top. Same aesthetics, but in the 12 fret with that slotted headstock like we've seen on the others. So which suits you? Listen with your ear, see if you can hear the difference. So finally, to round out the offerings for the grand concerts at the beginning of the year with V-Class bracing, we have the 800 Deluxe series. Now, you could argue that it's part of the 800 series with some additional options. What you basically get is the 800 guitar with a radiused armrest and go-toe tuners, or as we affectionately call them, chrome toes. So they are satin, nickel or satin chrome go-toe 510 tuners. If you're not familiar, these have a 21-to-1 ratio, beautiful kind of modernized button bean look, and they're a premium option. They're a premium tuner, and they really, really feel good. That 21-to-1 ratio means for every 21 turns of the button, the tuning stem is going to make 1 revolution. Typically, the Taylor's tuners and many others are 18-to-1. A lot of others are even 14-to-1. So this is very accurate tuning that allows you to dial it in. And on the V-Class guitars with the improved intonation, that is really noticeable. So on the 14th fret, that's what you're going to get, and the radiused armrest, basically for a few $100s more. If you haven't played a guitar with this or the beveled armrest, once you go armrest, you don't go back. No, you'll kind of wish all of your guitars had it. It's really, really comfortable. So definitely a nice feature. A lot of people like the aesthetics of it. I really love the feel of it. So take a listen to this, and then we'll move on to the next one. And this would be the next one. It's a 12 fret version of what we just saw. So everything that we talked about before with all of these applies. So the nice thing is Taylor has offered all of these grand concerts in these various series, different combinations of tone wood in the 300 series, up to even the deluxe models in 14 or 12 fret in the 800 Deluxe series. Which one is best suited for you really kind of depends upon what you're wanting, the feel that you desire, and what your ear prefers. The 12 frets definitely sound different from the 14 frets, could you notice the difference? So these guitars are ranging in price from $19.99 for the 312 CE 14 fret version. 12 frets costs a little bit more, up to these, which top out just above $4,000. So the 14 fret version of this one is $39.99. This one's $41.49 currently. Those can always change. Go to our website, alamomusic.com, see the latest prices on these. But take a listen to this one, compare it to the previous one. So there you go. Everything that Taylor's pretty much produced so far for the new Grand Concert guitars with V-Class bracing. I think they're louder than the outgoing ones, probably as loud as the non-V-brace Grand Auditoriums were. So you really get a lot more volume. You definitely get more sustain. You get true notes all the way up. The intonation's kind of uncanny. and the more you play these, or at least in my experience, the more I play them, the more that's noticeable as notes sustain, how just absolutely in tune they are. They're very resonant, and you're just going to have a lot of just kind of true to the note sustain and overtones and blooming that comes out of these guitars. If you play with a lighter touch, like I tend to, and a lot of you do, you're really going to love these guitars. With a light touch, they're going to be louder than a big guitar would be typically. If you need a maybe smaller size guitar based upon your stature, these are extremely comfortable. And if you prefer a shorter scale, you're going to like these. So there's a lot to love in these new Grand Concert guitars. If you have any questions about these, like the specs that we briefly went over, you want to see up-close photos, go to our website, it's alamomusic.com. You can also find our phone number there, message us directly through the website, or come in and we'll answer any questions you have and help you find the right guitar for you. Not for me, for you. So, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy these videos. Comment below, let us know what you think, and make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications. We're going to do more. You'll find out first. Thanks. Hey, thanks so much for watching our videos. If you enjoy what we're putting out, help support this channel by going down below and purchasing one of the t-shirts we've made for you. Rock your support for one of the oldest music stores in Texas and the country, and your love of guitar. Just purchase below, help support our videos, and go to our website, alamomusic.com, for more goodies that you can get. Thanks.